Let's now talk our viewers to KZN, Oliver. That's where, of course, we'll find our reporter Jade Polsa. Let's listen in to what the Commissioner Mkhwanazi is basically saying. I believe he is briefing the media.
Okay. On the side. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. We can start. Jason.
Okay. You guys happy? Okay, General, I'll start with you before I ask the Commissioner another question, but perhaps with yours, I saw that the IEC had put out their midday update, and one of the concerns that had come about was through the intimidation of I think they call them area managers that work for the IEC. So political parties allegedly harassing them and following them and so on. I just want to find out if you've received any reports on that, and does that fall within your hotspot areas, or are you finding these are now issues that are arising in other parts, and how are you dealing with that? Do you want to do one question at a time, or must I just ask?
Yeah, well, thus far, since we've been moving, since we've been flying over, we didn't actually get that much negative reporting from the IEC. Like I said, in a few minutes' time, we're going to have a management meeting, which is a joint meeting with IEC in that meeting. So we're going to get a status report with regard to all the incidents that will have happened, and then we can see how we handle that. But the report that I've been receiving as I was flying around has not been that bad.
And Commissioner, you were at the Westfield prison earlier today. I just wanted to find out from just your visit there, what was the voter turnout like? Were there any issues that arose during that process?
The voter turnout at Westville management area was very good. There were no serious issues, just a few offenders that could not be found. Their names could not be found on the voters' roll, and that was sorted out by the IEC. So by now, voting should be complete, and it is the same with almost all our correctional facilities. Most of them have actually, completed the voting.
PC, we were at Umlazi, Ward 87 earlier. So one policeman with about 3 police officers there. Are we looking at increasing as the day progresses into the evening, where you would find that maybe there might be incidents, or are you deploying people strategically, obviously depending on hotspots, but because Umlazi is one of the hotspots, I assume I'd expect to see more of a police visibility there?
Perhaps before I answer the question, I should ask you how many people were there on the queue, the crowd, how much of it? Estimate rough? I should estimate. Look, I indicated before that we classified our voting stations in terms of low risk, medium risk, and high risk. It might have happened that you went to a voting station that is low risk. It does not necessarily mean that Umlazi as a whole is low risk. There's a lot of voting stations within the same township, but we classify a voting station, not the area, not the township as a whole. So you might have seen that number in that voting station. If you had gone to another voting stations, maybe those that you have classified medium risk or high risk, you will have seen more police officers.
PC, SABC News, Jade. From the IEC briefing this morning, one of the main issues that voting stations delayed was because of the non-availability of SAPS officers to escort presiding officers to fetch voting material. Are you aware that this was the case this morning?
Well, out of 4,900, almost 5,000 voting stations, if we're to calculate how many of those that were affected, it might be a very small number. You are going to find glitches from time to time. Some challenges in terms of transport. Some of the members that might have arrived slightly later, but that does not necessarily mean that the voting station will have opened later as a result. It could be that when they had planned perhaps to leave at 5 o'clock in order to get to a voting station at 6 o'clock so they can prepare themselves, maybe they left 20 minutes later and they still arrive just after 6, but they still prepare to open the voting station at 7. So the way those incidents, we're dealing with a big operation here, so we cannot guarantee that a vehicle is not going to break down, a punch is not going to happen on the road.
So PC, are you saying that you'll only be able to give us proper answers as to incidents after this 4 p.m. briefing that you are going to have?
Yeah, look, because we are recording everything that happens. So when we go back into a meeting now, we'll be able to get the status report of every incident that happened in all the voting stations. Even if a small incident. For instance, this morning when we were in a meeting, we received a report that IEC had to fire one of the presiding officers because they discovered later that he is affiliated to a political party. So those are some of the things that you have to deal with. And that's why we even have police officers that are trained to be able to take over the roles of presiding officers.
Commissioner, I understand that there was succession from we understand that there was serious deployment in the northern side of the province, which was regarded as one of the high-risk areas. Has there been any concern, maybe any report you've received thus far in terms of any issues, maybe regarding political intolerance to the side?
No, thus far there's nothing negative as yet, but we're still far from finishing our operation. So we're still out there and on standby should something happen. So we cannot celebrate. The sun is still up, and even when the sun goes down, we still have to be on our high alert until such time the operation is finished.
Any questions?
I just want to ask one follow-up question.
Yes.
General, if you could just explain to us, so you know that there was this original plan which you discussed with us, you gave us an idea of the classifications of polling stations and so on. After your meeting today, does that mean that you now reassess your initial plan, or is that what part of this meeting, the 4 o'clock meeting, will determine? And secondly, the deployments that we saw the other day after the parade, how long does that last for in those particular areas that they've gone to?
Look, we have a lot of our intelligence members on the ground, moving amongst the crowds and sensing the tensions and any risk that you might have to expect. So when we get into a meeting and they do give reports. So reports might move a voting station from low risk straight to high risk, depending on the information that you're getting on the ground. The stations that you might think are high risk might drop down, not being high risk. So we are going to be moving our forces, being informed by that intelligence. The members that have been deployed in the northern side of our province, they're going to remain there until the whole voting is complete and the whole counting is complete, and the material has been taken back into the safer place before they return to the places where they come from. Same with the deployment that came from head office. They're also going to remain until we're satisfied that everything is smooth. Look, our operation doesn't end after the finishing counting in KZN, but it's going to run until the official announcement of the results, as well as celebrations for those that are going to be celebrating, so that you are comfortable that as a province there's stability until there's a new government that is put in place.
One KZN.
I'd like to know if have you guys been or received any information from the IEC as to what might have caused some delays at the Westville prison, because we went there this morning and by 9 o'clock the votings were not started, and they said that the IEC had not bring the material such as ballot boxes and so on.
Well, the voting started after 9 o'clock because the machines that the IEC utilizes to verify the eligibility of an offender to vote, or whether the offender is registered, were not working properly. So the IEC had to replace those machines, but there's also a problem of network. So you needed to find points inside the facility where network is quite good for that transmission to happen. So, as I've indicated, by now I'm sure the voting is complete, and it all went well.
Are we good?
Yeah, I just want to know if the general has voted. Have you voted, General?
But what is it Zulu? Hey. 1 KZN, 100% Zulu.
Sisajabula kwamanje thina samaphoyisa ngesimo esisibonayo la eprovince. Ngeke ngahamba nje ngalo mshini lo ndiza mshini sama nabo commissioner sama sibheka indawo kakhulukazi la eThekwini ngoba iThekwini namaphethelo ilona kade lisimise kabi besola khona ukuthi ngase sibe nenxushunxushu eziningi. Sihambile ke sasofika ku Hammarsdale sanga kontshanga sabuya sayokomashu Nanda Phoenix
All right, that concludes then that media briefing that was KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi just briefing around safety and security measures in KwaZulu-Natal. You will recall, of course, 17,000 law enforcement agencies have been deployed in the province, 200 voting stations identified as high risk in KZN. Of course, you would have heard the commissioners there saying that number will drop as the day progresses. Over 4,800 voting stations, the highest in the country in KZN. So you would imagine then that is why it's so important to have that kind of deployment in the country, especially in KwaZulu-Natal. But we'll continue then to crunch those numbers in terms of what the commissioner has indicated.